Although I've been a gamer most of my life that I can remember anyway, my fondest gaming memories are from my teenage years when the N64 was the fastest and most powerful games console on earth. I didn't have loads of games, but I had a fair few I loved. I've done a few videos looking back at some of those games, and while most have aged well and are still great games, others not so much. One game that everyone still seems to rave about is GoldenEye, especially for its multiplayer chaos. I had the game back in the day, but I didn't actually play the game properly. I tended to just mess around with action replay cheats, which I've also done a video or two on. It was a fun game, but it was a shame I never properly played the single player game in the way it was intended. A few years after GoldenEye was released, the same studio, Rare, released a spiritual sequel called Perfect Dark. It seemed to be everything GoldenEye was and more, but required the expansion pack to play it to its full potential. Thing is, because I hadn't played GoldenEye properly, I couldn't compare the two games together fairly, but now I've finally been able to play GoldenEye properly and see whether or not the spiritual sequel achieved what GoldenEye couldn't. Granted, technically I should probably be comparing GoldenEye with The World Is Not Enough, but seriously, did anyone actually play that game? When I originally started writing this, I was going to go down the usual route of picking some categories, comparing the games in each category, and awarding a point to whichever game did it best. But after doing the first section comparing each game's plot, I realised there weren't really any other categories I could reasonably use to award further points, so I'll be going down the X-Men Legends route and just talk about each game about different things and then decide which one I prefer. Though honestly, I already know which one I prefer, so I could just say which one it is and go down the pub, but I'm going to make you wait a little bit longer. I'm still going to start with the plot, and this seems like as good a time as any to get things underway. Seeing as GoldenEye is an adaptation of the film, if you've seen the film you'll know the plot of the game, so I won't spend too long talking about it, seeing as you probably already know the plot, but ultimately the game takes place in various years between the mid-1980s and 1990s. You play as James Bond, and when investigating a chemical factory, fellow agent Alec Trevelyan is murdered, which sets off a series of events building up to a plan to launch a satellite known as the GoldenEye, which lets out a huge electromagnetic pulse, destroying everything within the blast range that has an electrical circuit. As our favourite 00 agent, you have to stop it. There aren't many cutscenes that help explain the story, and if you haven't seen the film, you probably won't have a clue what's going on unless you read the mission briefings before each stage. They give more info on what's going on and why you're going to certain places, and they can make for some quite interesting reading. Perfect Dark takes place in 2023, and you take the role of Joanna Dark, who works for the Carrington Institute, which on the surface is a research and development company, but also deals with secret espionage operations. At the start of the game, it looks as though you're trying to stop a big defense corporation, Datadyne, which has a rivalry with the Carrington Institute, from doing something horrible, and ends up with Joanna being caught up in an interplanetary war between the Mayans, who are linked with the Carrington Institute, and the Skedar, who have a deal with Datadyne. Long story short, the Skedar want Datadyne's help to recover a lost ship on Earth that has the power to destroy planets, which they intend to use on the Mayan home world. Again, there's more to it than that, like what the Skedar do for Datadyne in return for their help, and what else they plan to do with the weapon, but as a secret agent, it's up to Joanna Dark to investigate what's going on and stop the plan from coming to fruition. It does get a tad convoluted, and just like with GoldenEye, it can be a bit difficult to know why you're going to a specific place, but not only do you get the mission briefings giving you extra information on what's going on and why you need to complete the missions you're given, but there are also fully animated videos complete with voice acting, which really helps. For story, the point would have gone to Perfect Dark, as not only is it explained better thanks to the cutscenes, but even if those were taken away, with the way it starts as a simple rescue mission and then has multiple twists and betrayal, it ends up becoming a much deeper and more engrossing tale.
We don't have an image record, and we can't find any official files. All we have is the name. Good luck, Perfect Dark.
In other comparison videos I've done, I would usually compare things like combat, puzzles and other characters, but seeing as both games are FPSs through and through, there isn't much in the way of puzzles aside from figuring out how to complete the missions, which doesn't really count. Combat would just be a gun comparison, and other characters would be hugely weighted towards Perfect Dark, seeing as A, GoldenEye doesn't have that many other characters, and B, as there's no voice acting or major cutscenes in GoldenEye, it doesn't do much with the ones it has, which is why other categories for points was rather limited. As I mentioned earlier, although I played both games when they were first released, I never really played GoldenEye through properly, so when I played it for the purposes of this comparison, I did have a bit of a nostalgia trip. Playing through levels and actually having to use tactics rather than blitzing through with an invisibility cheat on was great. There were a few hidden goodies I remembered about, like the RCP-90 on the train level. It's only available on the agent difficulty, but even still, it was and still is my favourite gun in the game, so wrecking everyone on the train with it was so much fun. I really enjoyed the playthrough, and I completed it on agent and secret agents. Some stages gave me a bit of trouble, and more than once I was so close to finishing the stage, but then got shot by some bastard at the last second and died. I did a couple of stages on 00 agents, but I know I'm not good enough to complete the game on that difficulty, and I can't be arsed with all the attempts it would take to do it. I like the game, but not that much, and I'm not that worried about 007 agent to go through all of that just to be able to replay the levels again, even if it does allow you to adjust the enemy stats. You get the 3 difficulties on Perfect Dark as well, and although I did play the game properly back in the day, I wasn't entirely sure how everything fit together, like why Dr. Carroll, who you rescue at the start, is important to the Skedar's plan. Reading the mission briefings connected the dots, and the plot made a lot more sense, and I really enjoyed playing the game again. I didn't quite have the nostalgia trip I did when I was playing GoldenEye, but I spent a lot more time playing Perfect Dark all those years ago than I did with GoldenEye. Thing is, I completed GoldenEye on Agent and Secret Agent, but I was struggling with Secret Agent on Perfect Dark. The game was a lot harder than GoldenEye. It seems as though the developers anticipated you'd played GoldenEye, so had some skill and ranked up the difficulty. I only made it about halfway through Secret Agent because the game was completely evil.
What the hell? It screwed me over. Did you see that? What do you mean it's my own fault? Nothing I could do. How can you say something like that? Don't defend the game. Telling me to just get good really doesn't help. It's supposed to be on my side. No, if you're not going to come up with anything that's helpful, go sit in the corner. You stay there. Stupid game.
If you do manage to complete the games, you unlock extra missions. In GoldenEye, completing Agent and Secret Agent would unlock the Aztec mission, but then completing all missions including Aztec on 00 Agent unlocks the Egyptian level. Completing that on all 3 settings unlocks 007 mode. In Perfect Dark, completing the game on Agent unlocks Mr. Blonde's Revenge, Secret Agent unlocks Mine SOS, and Perfect Agent unlocks War. Each level adds a bit more backstory to certain events and fills in gaps left in the story. I haven't unlocked Mine SOS or War, but I'm sure one day I'll get round to it once I manage to get good. Both games also have cheats to unlock by completing missions within a certain time. Both games have quite a few cheats to unlock, but at least with Perfect Dark, it tells you which mission you need to complete on what difficulty and in what time limit in order to unlock the cheat. That's kind of it for single player content for GoldenEye, but with Perfect Dark, oh my, there's so much more. Outside of the main story missions, you can walk around the Carrington Institute where you can read character bios, do training simulations and a firing range, which is really in-depth, giving various challenges for every type of gun, including taking into account a gun's secondary function, and getting a bronze medal for every weapon unlocks the Duel mission. You also then have the challenges, 30 of them. They vary from getting a certain number of kills, king of the hill, capture the flag and hacking a computer, all done against AI enemies. The missions gradually get harder and harder, and by the low 20s you'll be getting absolutely annihilated unless you've already managed to get good. I guess now would be a good time to go into the multiplayer goodness, which is what GoldenEye is legendary for. The game still holds up as a decent multiplayer game, and I've had a lot of fun playing against friends. I always play as Boris and I always get annihilated, but it's still a great multiplayer FPS, especially with 4 players, but 2 is still great. You can have the usual kill limit and time limit, but it also has ones like the Living Daylights, where the player who holds onto a flag for the longest is the winner, and you only live twice, where you only live twice. Perfect Dark also has the same multiplayer chaos, complete with a few stages carried over from GoldenEye, but there are still a lot of new stages. What's even better though is that you can add up to 8 AI simulants to join the chaos. Though they can just have varying difficulty levels to play against, there are also ones that have specific behaviour, like one that will target those with low health or one that will go after the player that previously killed them. It can create for some absolutely chaotic matches, and due to the larger number of participants, much more varied team matches. Each player has a profile with saved stats, and as you play more games, get more KOs and shoot more dudes, your combat ranking will increase. You start off as beginner 21 and can climb all the way up to perfect 1, though getting there is an absolute bitch. Just like with GoldenEye, Perfect Dark has the standard kill and time limit, but also has Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, Pop a Cap and others. While both games had various weapon options, only Perfect Dark has a custom option allowing you to choose whatever 6 items you want from the vast weapons list. So, you've done the 30 challenges, played lots of games, got your combat ranking to perfect 1, you're done, right? Actually, no. There are 2 other multiplayer modes to mention, cooperative and counter-operative. Cooperative is, as you probably guessed, 2 players playing through the main story together. You can do every mission on all 3 difficulty settings and you get a star for each one you do, and I'm currently working through this with a friend. Counter-operative has one player taking the role as one of the guards, and they have to prevent the other player, playing as Joanna Dark, from completing the missions. You don't get any stars for completing it, so if you're going to do it, I'd recommend playing it on Secret Agent, especially on the early missions. If you play this on Agent, it can get a tad dull for the player taking on the guard role, because where you're so much weaker than Joe, you'll spend ages getting ready only to die in one hit and then have to start from scratch. It's especially annoying when most of the guards have been killed and you end up spawning at Joe's starting point at the very beginning of the stage and have to leg it all the way through the level to get to her. There isn't much more to say about the games really, so it's about time we get to the main question. Does the extra content contained in Perfect Dark make it superior to GoldenEye? The game still considered to be one of the best N64 games and one of the greatest multiplayer FPSs of all time. To me, Perfect Dark is so much better than GoldenEye. Don't get me wrong, GoldenEye is great and I had a lot of fun playing it. It was a good nostalgia trip, but Perfect Dark takes GoldenEye and improves on every aspect. It even has reload animations unique to each gun type. I know that's only a minor thing, but it goes to show how even the minor aspects have been improved, let alone the story and its delivery with the cutscenes. When I play GoldenEye with my friends, which is what most people say is the best aspect of GoldenEye, it's always the same thing. 2 to 4 people running around shooting at each other. It's fun, but there's very little variation even with the various scenarios. With Perfect Dark, my friends and I have a whole list of things we want to accomplish, and that's without playing the bog standard multiplayer matches, which can have up to 12 participants, making even those matches much more enjoyable. Sorry nostalgia, you're not what you used to be. See you next time.